in the shade of Treehouse Dam is a very, very, very sleepy kitty. And there lies Hosana. You can see him just in the shade there. He's absolutely flat and sleeping. So we did our time lapse, which requires us actually to get out of the car, and Hosana basically popped his head up, looked at us for about all of 1 second, and then just put his head down. And VM and I had a whole conversation around, well, not too far from the car as we did the time lapse, and he did not even care one bit. I think he's a hot kitty. You can see how much he's breathing, and so he's found himself the perfect place just to have a really good rest. I don't think we're going to spend all afternoon with Hosana now. I want to try and go and check some of the other water holes around while he's still very, very sleepy, and come back to him a little bit later. But what I want to do before we do that is just go around to the other side, because we are way away from where he is. So I would prefer just to go and kind of spend some time closer to him, and we'll maybe do about half an hour with him now and just see if he gets up to anything. And if nothing, well, then we're going to carry on and try and, like I say, go and find some ellies at some of the other water holes just to check if there isn't any sign of them around, and then we'll come back to Hosana. With the heat that we've got this afternoon, I highly, highly doubt that Hosana is going to be anywhere. He's going to lie there, he's going to sleep, and he's going to wait for the sun to come down. It's much like what we saw a few days ago when he was lying next to that little mud wallow after he stole that kill from Tundi, or maybe not stole the kill, but fed a bit off that kill from Tundi. He was very tired, and he only woke up right at the end of the afternoon. And it'll be a very similar occurrence today with him. He's been here most of the day, so there would have been things like impalas and steenbok and duik and those kind of things that would have come down already. But because he's such a full cat, he's definitely not going to be too concerned about food. He's more just going to be trying to just stay nice and cool in this horribly hot weather. So we'll just come and spend a little bit of time with him now, because it's always nice to have a leopard, and we've been so spoilt with Hosana sightings of late. And he's actually looking very dopey right now. He's got his tongue sticking out because he's so hot. Hosana, put your tongue away. You can see he really is cooking. He's breathing heavily, and there's that tongue sticking out. As you can see, he's kind of almost as if to say, it's too hot, I can't deal with this. It's a shock to the system after a coolish winter, and so the tongue is out, and he's absolutely sleepy. And I was saying to VM, there's not many places in the world where you would be able to view a leopard, get out on foot, not too far from him, and he'll just pass out and sleep exactly like he is now and not worry about us at all. He really wasn't perturbed by our presence whatsoever. He was just, well, there's another person there, and that's okay. So he is probably got to be one of the most relaxed individuals that I've seen on foot, particularly of male leopards. The male leopards generally are a little bit more kind of wary of things on foot. I've never really had many relaxed male leopards in my time. The females seem to be okay, but male leopards not so much. But this guy is just absolutely super chilled with us. He doesn't worry about us at all, which is cool. So it's such a pleasure to actually be able to spend time with a cat like this, and to be able to follow him and to have as many sightings as we've had recently is very special. Roshni and Jennifer, you both commenting on how cute he looks at the moment. Well, I don't know if cute, I suppose, is one way of looking at it. He almost looks a bit dopey, doesn't he, with his kind of tongue out. But one thing he does look is hot. He doesn't look like he's very comfortable at all. And that's what happens, Hosana, when you steal carcasses from other leopards and you eat like a glutton, is that this is what happens in the summer months, is that he'll be hot and full and uncomfortable. But once that sun goes down, then you'll find he'll wake up a little bit, and we'll see much like what we saw the other day, where he's going to groom himself. And also, the thing is around sunset will be a good time to be at Treehouse Dam, because the reason for that is that that's going to attract all kinds of animals to come down and drink. And so hopefully things like impalas will come down, and that will stimulate him to get up and start moving towards the darker hours, and maybe we potentially get to see him in one of those trademark hunts that we've been seeing from Hosana around the water holes over the last month. So hopefully today will be the day that he would be successful as well. But given that he's so full, I don't know if hunting's going to be on the cards. Maybe it will be. He's really kind of kept that round belly over the last few weeks, and so it'll be good if he does do a bit of hunting later in the day. But for now, I think it's all about sleeping and resting and taking it as easy as possible. Shame, my boy, is it hot out there? At least there's a breeze blowing today, so that will help. Romit, So leopards won't use their tongue to taste the air. They're not like snakes in that their sensory cells are on the tongue. What leopards have is they have a organ in the roof of the mouth called the organ of Jacobson. And so what a leopard does is it will often sniff around that area, and it will open its mouth and pull that scent over that organ of Jacobson, and that organ of Jacobson is what's going to analyze the scent in the air, on the ground, or wherever, let's say, another leopard has defecated, and that'll be able to tell that leopard, okay, there is another leopard here, it's a male, it's a female, it's a dominant male, it's a female, it's an estrus, and they'll be able to work out their environment of what the other leopards are doing in their area. In terms of picking up other predators and prey animals, most of that is done by either a sense of hearing, sense of sight, or they might pick up a smell somewhere in the wind. They might pick up the scent of an approaching animal, and that will then give them an idea, but they're not using their tongue to taste the air like a snake would. It's a very different system for leopards. They have a very developed nasal structure, and that allows them to be able to analyze scent just from smelling from the nose itself. They don't need the tongue to aid in that process at all. The reason why his tongue is out at the moment like this is you probably find with the breeze that is blowing that I was talking about earlier, there's a little bit of a breeze going across, and so he's been panting, and when they pant, they try and sometimes open their mouth, and that just helps to aid with the cooling of the tongue, and the reason they do that is that they're passing air over it. There's evaporation of moisture on the tongue itself, which causes the blood in the tongue to cool down and sends that cooler blood back into the body. Now, if his tongue is out with a bit of a breeze blowing, that's basically happening for him without him having to actually sit with his mouth open and pant away. He can lie down like that, and that's happening just by the breeze itself. So it's almost a lazy panting that he's doing at the moment by keeping his tongue out and open. You also find that his mouth is slightly open at the moment as he breathes quite quickly, just to try and keep that body temperature down as much as possible. If they didn't have the system, you would find that cats, big cats in particular, things like leopard and lions and cheetah that occur in these hot environments, would not be able to survive. They've got thick fur coats, and that means that they get a very, very high buildup of body temperature, and so the panting is vitally important, as well as water, for these animals to be able to survive. So you can see he's using every technique he can. He's panting, he's got shade, he's close to a water hole. It's all the combinations that he needs in order to keep himself, one, hydrated, and two, his body temperature down in order to survive. So he's being a very clever cat, and he's doing a sterling effort at it at the moment, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the sum total of Hosana's activity until we get much later in the afternoon and it gets much cooler. Look at the size of his paws. He's getting big, old Hosana. It's amazing actually to watch him and just to see him and spend time with him. Like I was saying just now, he's probably got to be one of the most relaxed male leopards I've ever spent time around. Tumba is in no way the same as Hosana on foot. You find that Tumba generally runs a little bit from you on foot, whereas Hosana, he just doesn't seem to care at all. He's pretty comfortable with us as a vehicle. You can see I drove all the way around, and the entire time I drove around here and parked in this distance, and we are quite close to Hosana at the moment. I mean, he's no more than probably 15 meters from us. He hasn't even opened his eyes once, so he's gone completely used to us, and it's an absolute treat to have a male like that. And hopefully, I'm really hoping that either one of these two boys does end up staying here, because we've put a lot of time and a lot of hours into them, and it's been a privilege to watch them grow, but it's also it's allowed us to habituate them. And that means that we've got a situation where we get to see them for long periods of time. So hopefully they will end up staying in our area. Now, I believe Brent Leo Smith is also out and about today, but he's actually not in a vehicle. He's in the studio with the river cams, and I believe he has a crossing of the wildebeest over the Mara River. Well, you can see we're back with Hosana, and well, not much has really changed. He's changed position, but his sleeping arrangement is still like it was earlier. Head is down, his tongue at least is in now, not looking as dopey. The nice thing is that we're in such a beautiful spot at the moment. He's about eye level with us so it's just a really different angle on a leopard. You don't generally get to see them at this sort of angle. You're normally kind of higher than what they are, or sometimes a little bit low if they're on termite mounds, but at the moment we're perfectly kind of placed to be at the same level as him, and if he wakes up and stares at us, it's going to be absolutely wonderful. But you can see he's really quite fast asleep, and I wonder why he moved. Maybe it's a little bit cooler on this side. There's a lot more shade on offer, is also a little bit more hidden if anything does go towards the dam, so it could have been that something came past that maybe pushed him away, or he's just decided that this is a better spot. But look at that big bulging tummy. You can see how fast and how rapid the rate of breathing is. It's an incredibly quick breath that he's taking, and as we discussed earlier, it's all just to do with the heat as well as the amount of food that he's ingested over the last little bits. And there's his tail curled at the back. Romit, you're asking if his paws are nearly the same size as a lion's? No. So Hosana, even though he does have big paws and is a growing individual, his paws are still much smaller than that of a lioness's. His size paws are probably that of I would say, 6 to 7 or 8 month old lioness, so that sort of size. He's not much bigger than that. A leopard generally does have smaller feet than the lions, and so his paw size is still quite small. The only leopards that I've seen that tracks in any way resemble that of a lioness, of an adult lioness, would be somebody like Anderson. So Imsahwe, his dad, and himself, they've got really large, big paw prints, and in the right substrate can sometimes look a bit lionessish and of that size, but it's only in soft substrate where this paw size expands out. Generally, though, a leopard's paw is a little bit smaller than that of lions. And the thing that's nice and easy when it comes to tracking, and particularly when you're tracking the cats, and if you're a bit kind of nervous of telling the difference between a lion and a leopard, very seldom are you going to find a lion of this size that has a similar paw size to a leopard on its own. It will be a young lion, which then inevitably means it's with a pride. Even if it is a female that is 2-3 years old, she theoretically should be with other lionesses, and therefore there will be a sign of another cat track somewhere close by. Male leopards, on the other hand, generally are on their own, and so normally it's a singular cat footprint that you're seeing as opposed to multiple footprints, and that's a good way of thinking about it. If you are doing your own tracking, if you're in Kruger or something and you see it going down the road, that is something that you can look out for. Oh, there we go. It's exactly what I was hoping for. He's now popped his head up, and isn't that just absolutely spectacular? It's the same level as him, and he is looking as beautiful as you could ever wish for from a leopard, that's for sure. He really does look good sitting atop his little platform, if you want to call it that. Couldn't ask for anything better, that's for sure. I wonder what he's spotted. Maybe there's some animals that are starting to now come for a drink. It's that time of the day, and we were talking about it earlier before we kind of left Hosana, is that at this time you'll often find things like nyala or steenbok or impalas coming for a drink, and so maybe something is slowly on the horizon here somewhere that he can then pick up, and that's maybe why he's looking around a little bit and just checking to see what's happening. That could be the reason that he popped his head up. You can see he's starting to groom himself a little bit. Now, grooming is generally a sign that he is starting to get ready to wake up a little bit more and start to actually move around. Now, Debbie, you say that Hosana reminds you a lot of Quarantine, the same kind of relaxed demeanor as what Quarantine had. Well, unfortunately, I never really got to spend time with Quarantine. I've never actually even seen him, so I don't know, but I will take your word for it. And if Quarantine was anything like Hosana, then he must have been an absolutely special individual, because there's not many male leopards that are as relaxed as this guy is at this age. Generally, male leopards, when they're on their own in the first few years after leaving mom, are quite shy and skittish. They don't want too much attention attracted to them. They don't really want to be seen and a lot of fuss to be made over them, because obviously they're trying to forge their way and they don't want the big males to find them that easily, and so you end up with a situation where they're a little bit kind of wary of what's going on. But you know, this particular individual is so relaxed, and I believe Quarantine was as well, and Quarantine's turned out to be a wonderful male, a big individual that has still hung around this area, and hopefully we're going to see more of the same from Hosana, and then that he's going to end up also gleaning some sort of territory in this particular section that we'll see him for many years to come, because he is an absolutely special individual. And the site that we've got right now is really quite wonderful. Like I say, he's lying at my eye level, so I'm basically looking straight at where he is. You can see the sun is slowly setting behind the dam wall to his sort of left-hand side a little bit, or our left-hand side, should I say, as we look at him. And so it's just a magical scene of him kind of grooming and the sun going down, and it's all very peaceful and still. There's not too many calls at this time of the day. It's the time where animals are slowly but surely starting to settle down, and it's just a wonderful and probably the one of my favorite times in the bush is when you just sit like this, especially when you get to look at something as beautiful as a cat like Hosana, and you can just take in the scenery around you and absorb what's going on and listen to the bird calls and kind of just take it all in. It's a very special thing to be able to do this. Now, he is going to groom himself probably quite extensively. He's spent a lot of the day resting. He's also, remember, fed on a carcass this morning. There'll be bits of meat and blood that are still on his paws. He also would have dislodged fur going up and down trees and lying down. There's also insects that may have gotten onto him and parasites. So he'll spend quite a long time grooming himself before he actually gets going. Generally, you'll find leopards are very good at keeping themselves clean, and so they are meticulous about going over those paws, the legs. They'll go over the chest area, a bit of the body, make sure that everything is in good condition before they begin their afternoons patrolling around. But he looks absolutely wonderful, doesn't he? He's really starting to full out. Look at the depth of his chest now. He's starting to look very male leopard-like. So, Proud Cat Mama, the leopards are named by the various ranges. It depends on where they occur as to who names them, or where they've been born, actually, is probably a better way to put it. So it's generally in the areas that they're born. Those particular ranges will then name the leopards and give them an IDing kind of portfolio with a name attached to it so that we know who they are and where they come from. So it just depends where they're born and where they spend their youth. That will indicate who gets the naming rights on them. So hypothetically, for Shadow's cub, it would be the Arethusa Ranges, given that she was born there. For Hosana and Shongile, it was the guys here at Djuma, because they were born here on Djuma itself. So that's basically how it works. In terms of how they get named is different everywhere you go. Some guys like to name them in terms of areas that they're in, others on sort of characteristics that they display and give out as they start to grow and get older, and that's also why they often only get an ID at about a year old. And it just depends on the different individual. But look how he's getting in between the toes. He's really going to town, making sure those paws are absolutely clean and keeping the weapons clean for the night ahead. And he really has come into his own, this little guy. It's going to be amazing just to watch him develop, and I hope wherever he does end up, if it's not here, that it's somewhere that we can follow his process. Right, now, while Hosana kind of flaps back down and begins to rest again, let's go across to my friend Scotty Dyson, who I don't know if we've seen him this afternoon, but I bet Scotty's just in an area where those cheetahs are, that there's a few gremlins, and so the cheetahs have given him a really wonderful time, but unfortunately the gremlins are a little bit hectic. Now you can see Hosana is still fast asleep at the moment. He's not waking up for very much. There were a few Egyptian geese that flew away just now, and that got him a little bit stirred up, and he kind of looked around all of about 2 seconds, realized they were Egyptian geese, and then was back down again. And you can see nothing is really moving but that tummy. His tail's not even twitching in any way whatsoever. He is one sleepy, warm cat at this stage. The sun, though, is starting to set, which means that hopefully we are going to see a situation where he's going to start waking up slowly but surely and start actually getting going. And I'm really hoping after a hot day like today that his first port of call will be to go and have a little drink down at the dam, because it's always wonderful to watch leopards drink. They kind of get down, and it's a nice sight to watch, and it's also a great thing, particularly because we have a school drive coming where we can educate the kids on how cats drink, because it's not like a lot of people think where they scoop water into their mouth. It's all to do with surface tension and the tension of the hairs that they have on the surface tension that pulls water up as they pull their tongue up, and they then close their mouth over the droplets that are being pulled up by that tongue. So it would be really nice if he did go and drink, and also if he just looked around for us, because it's nice to see his beautiful face, and it really is such a wonderful angle that we're at the moment that hopefully him waking up will be really special, and we'll be able to kind of watch him walking at eye level with us, which is a very special thing to see. Look at all the markings on his tummy. You can see how the spots on the tummy don't kind of explode out like the ones on the rest of the body. They're still quite solid, so you tend to see on their stomachs very dark black spots that don't have the little creamy coloured patch in the middle, or golden patch in the middle, should we call it. So those are more spots than they are rosettes that you see on the tummy. Now the tummy, of course, is moving at a rate of knots, so it's not easy to see, but it's still very cool. This is very seldom we're going to get such close-up visuals of a tummy of a predator moving up and down. We're in such a wonderful place here, and where he's lying is nice and open. There's no bushes in the way, so it is absolutely perfect. And I'm sure Hosana is appreciating this breeze that is starting to pick up. There's a much cooler breeze that we're starting to feel now coming out from the sort of eastern side blowing across us. And so I'm sure Hosana, maybe that's why he positioned himself here, as this dam wall was maybe blocking that breeze a bit where he was lying earlier, and that he's going to come now and sit in this area where there's a little bit more exposure to that wind that's funneling up this drainage line. But you can hear how quiet it is. Very, very few birds calling even. I was listening out, hoping that we'd hear some of the cuckoos just calling for the end of the day. I'm also eagerly anticipating and waiting for that woodland kingfisher to start calling, because, well, they should slowly but surely be starting to make their way down. I believe somebody said that they heard a woodland kingfisher recently. I myself haven't heard one. I've not even remotely heard any sign of them. Even north of us towards Hoedspruit, there's been no kind of indication that they're around at the moment, so I'm sure they will come soon. I always say 6th of November, that's my kind of date for the woodland kingfishers, which means we've still got quite a bit of time to go. And that's actually just reminded me that a certain few staff members that are working here at Safari Live actually owe me from our last bet that we had, because we had a rain bet a few weeks ago, and we're still waiting for payment of said debt from the likes of Megan May Nelson, who is in FC, who has just realized and is shouting in my ear, I'm so right. So yes, Louise Pavid and Megan May Nelson and Senzo, you guys all owe me and I think Brent was involved in this as well, wasn't he, Megan? Brent also gave his sort of response, so I'll have to claim my 6 apple juices from all of those individuals over the next little bit. Now, of course, if they all do pay up, it's not going to use it for just myself. We'll just share it amongst the crew and all have a good time with it. Well, that's kind of the idea anyway. But you would drink it yourself, Vildi. Don't worry, Vildi. You were not going to share it. No.
Not if it was my prize.
Not if it was your prize. And Vildi, I got it on the day. I'd predicted the rain on the day. So we got a full Vildi in because VM wasn't here for this. He was on leave at the time. So hopefully the guys will pay up and we can then utilize it. And especially in this hot weather, it would be a wonderful thing to have a couple of cold apple juices in the fridge for after drive. Not that we don't anyway, but it would be nice if the rest of them were there as well. And it was ones that I hadn't paid for. But Hosana, of course, is completely unperturbed by this conversation. He doesn't give a hoot about my apple juices or the fact that I won a bet, but it was just the woodland kingfisher story that reminded me about it. And so I reckon 6th of November. VM, what are you calling for woodland kingfishers? 10th of November. So VM's on the 10th of November. Meg?
Another date for the 10th. I can't remember that as well.
Maybe Impala birthing?
That might also be the 10th.
So Impala birthing, also the 10th for VM. Right, so the 10th is going to be a busy day for you, VM. You're going to see a lot of action on the 10th. Now, Megan, what are you calling for woodland kingfisher? We'll get rope Megan in because she's directing today, so we'll have to ask her what she wants to do. So Megan is on the 11th. Oh, so close, Megan. You've got to give yourself some breathing room so that you can win it if you're not on the day. So Megan's on the 11th of October for woodland kingfisher. So 15th of October or 15th of November, Megan, because now Megan's saying 15th of October, which was 2 days ago. So I would imagine that 15th of November is more what Megan is referring to. Okay, so VM on the 10th, Megan on the 15th, I'm on the 6th. We'll have to ask Byron, Louise, and Ali, and who else is in camp at the moment, VM? That it in Essentia. And Essentia is going to have to weigh in on this, and Senzo also gets back soon. So if they're not back before Senzo gets back, we'll have to ask him as well. This is going to be quite a good wager. I know that the woodland kingfishers have actually been seen up near in Kenya area and starting to come southwards, and there are 1 or 2 people that have said they've heard them calling north of us already, but I don't know. I know the striped kingfisher has got a very similar call, and if you're not paying attention, it can often sound like that. So it'll be interesting just to see when they arrive. I reckon we're going for November. It'll depend on rain. If we get a big storm and a lot of water. Oh no, so Louise has pipped me now. She's gone to the 5th of November, which means she's given me no breathing space at all. So if it's before the 6th, I'm done for. So I'm going to have to hope that it's the 6th or after that I can at least win it. But okay, Louise, you've done a 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Day. So I wonder if you will get your woodland kingfisher. Damn. Now Lou has really gotten into a place where she's pipped me badly. I was hoping that none of them would go earlier, because then it meant that if it was before then, I would still be able to utilize that to my advantage. Oh well. Anyway, Lou's learned from the rain bet. Right. Well, it is that time of the afternoon where the schools are going to be joining us, so we're going to go across to... Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful leopard. It's a very warm welcome to McAuliffe Elementary. I hope that you're having a wonderful day at school. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Viam, and we've got one of the most special animals that we could ask for. It's the most beautiful and rare of our cats here in Africa, and so it's a tough animal to see, and we're very lucky that we get to see them very often. So remember, you can ask lots of questions. Just try and get through as many as possible. Now, this boy leopard, you'll see, is very sleepy at the moment. It's now just at the end of a hot day today. It was about 85 degrees Fahrenheit today, so it was very, very hot. And you'll hear that there's another car here that's with us. That's people that have come to see this animal. And so he's had a long day of trying to stay nice and cool because it's been so hot. He also ate last night. He had a meal that he got from another female, and that's why he's got a big tummy. And because he's got a big tummy, he's very hot, and he's trying to rest and sleep and wait for the sun to go down. But the sun is now slowly dripping and going behind the horizon, which means that this leopard should hopefully start waking up. You can see he's a little bit sleepy, and he kind of pops his head up when the car started, but he's going to take a while to wake up because it's still quite warm. Only when that sun is way down will we see him getting up, and then he'll start to groom. He might roll around a little bit, and just so that he can kind of get himself comfortable. But look at how beautiful he is. Look at those amazing spots that you see there. Now, his spots have a very special name. Their spots are called rosettes. Now, the reason why his spots are called rosettes is because his spots are not solid, so they basically have broken apart, and you see in between the black is a little gold bit, and so that's why it's called rosettes. It's almost like a flower that you see, like a rose, and so that's where the name comes from, and that's what makes them different to the cheetah. Now, cheetah are another type of spotted cat that we get here in Africa, but cheetah have big solid black polka dots, so it's just one big black dot, and they don't explode out and form this little flower like you see on the leopard itself. Now, just now I was saying that a leopard is a rare animal and is not one that you get to see very often, and that's because leopards are very, very shy and very, very secretive, which means they like to spend a lot of time hiding out in the bush and trying to find places where they can lie and wait, because they will rely on their camouflage. Now, camouflage is a word that we use to basically describe or to tell us how this animal blends with its environment, so how it makes itself match the trees and the grass so that it can hide from the animals that it's going to be hunting. This leopard will hunt all kinds of antelope like your deer that you get in the US, and it will try and kind of go after those similar things here in Africa, and it needs to be able to ambush them, which means it needs to be able to hide and wait for those animals to come very close, where it can then come out of the bush and grab it when the animal has no idea. It's not like the cheetah that uses a very, very fast speed. This animal is built for power, and it has to try and stay hidden for as long as possible, and so that's why it has those spots. Now, Giovanni, you were asking how far they can run, and I was saying it's not as far, or how fast then they run, sorry, and I was saying they're not as fast as a cheetah, and so a leopard will run, in miles, will run at about 35 miles an hour. That's how fast it will run. Now, look, there's another predator that's just come. So there's a hyena that's arrived. Look, the hyena's just poked its head up. You can see the sun setting behind it. The leopard hasn't seen the hyena, so maybe the leopard's going to get chased by the hyena. Hyenas don't like leopards very much, and neither do leopards like hyenas, because they're both predators, and there's something that they have to worry about. But look at that. You see the hyena's on top? Now the leopard's seen the hyena. Now the leopard might run away. The hyena's here because the leopard had food this morning, and so it's looking to see if there's any more signs. But the hyena has realized, no, it's on its own. It doesn't want to try and take on the leopard by itself, and so that's why it's walking off a little bit. You can see the leopard's not too worried. They're both of the same size, but if the hyena comes closer, look, the leopard's going down. It's trying to make itself smaller and trying to make sure that it doesn't show itself to the hyena. Now the hyena's a bit kind of nervous going past the car, and it actually looks like it might leave the leopard alone. Let's see, it's now come down to the same level as the leopard, but no, it's walking away. So I think our leopard is going to be just fine and it's not going to get chased. But that was very close and very special. You're not going to see that every day. Jaden, a leopard's favorite thing to do is, well, during the day when it's hot, is to sleep, like this leopard's been doing. So he likes to lie down and rest, and then when it gets a little bit cooler in the night, he likes to walk around and try and hunt and try and find food. And so leopards will go around and look for all kinds of animals that they can chase and try and then eat. And so that's what they like to do. They're hunters, and they're animals that eat meat, and so that's their favorite things. But during the day, their favorite thing is to sleep and to stay out of the way of the sun. And you can see, look at him scratching himself. He's scratching because there's lots of different things out here that feed on his blood, like ticks, and so they make him itchy. Heidi, you're asking if a leopard can kill an animal in one bite. Well, it depends on what kind of animal and what size of animal we're talking about. If we're talking about a small animal that they like to hunt, so things like a scrub hare, which is almost like a little rabbit, or things like mongoose, which are very small and almost about the size of a rat, those kind of things, yes, they will kill them in one bite. They just bite it and they can break the spine and they can then kill it. But bigger animals, so things like the impala, which is like a deer, that animal is very big and is strong, and so the leopard has to try and get it around the throat where it can then close off the air, and that animal stops breathing. It can't kill it in just one bite. So only the smaller animals that it hunts. And the thing about the leopard that makes it very special is that leopards will go after a very, very wide amount of food. So it will eat things from insects to small mongoose to rabbits to baby impalas, all the way up to even baby elephants and baby hippos. So they've got a very, very big amount of food to go after, and so it just depends on the different types of food that will indicate what they would want. To a that I do indeed. So our leopard is just watching over the dam. I was saying that there is a water hole here where the leopard might come and have a drink, and it's now come over the top just to have a look around. It's also, the sun is down, so it's much, much cooler now, and so he can start moving around. And being a young male leopard, he doesn't have a territory or an area that is his own that he stays in all the time. He's still moving around where his mom had a territory, or mom had an area that was her homeland, and so he moves around quite a bit. And now that he's awake and is looking around, I think he's going to come maybe have a drink, and then from there we might see him moving, and hopefully he's going to take us as he goes along, and he checks his area out and looks for any signs of animals that he can maybe then hunt, because it's always exciting watching a leopard moving through the darkness of the night. Addison, leopards will sometimes play with other leopards, but only if it's their mom or if it's a sibling. So if it's a brother or a sister, then they will play with one another. It's not very common to see two leopards together at all. Now, the interesting thing is sometimes here in the Sabi Sands we have a very, very big number of leopards that we see in this area, and that means that sometimes leopards like this will walk into a different family of leopards. And so last night, this male, he actually walked into a mommy and a cub, and he was then with them, and they were kind of together, but he didn't actually play with the mom or the cub, because unfortunately the mom gets very, very upset if a different leopard comes close to her cub. And so this poor leopard had to then sit, and he got a little bit of food, but he wasn't able to play. But if it was his sister or if it was his mother, then yes, he would have been able to play with them quite a bit, and you'll see them jumping up and down and chasing each other and up trees and down trees, and it's all quite a big game when they have these kind of things happening. So it's amazing to watch, but very seldom with other leopards. Now, Michael, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question all the way. If Megan, if you can just please say it again. Now, Michael, leopards don't have the biggest of roars. They're not like lions that have a big booming roar that you hear from a long way away, leopards do have a roar, but we call it a saw. And the reason why we call it a saw, now, Michael, I don't know if you've ever spent time near someone that has cut some wood, and they use a sharp knife basically to cut the wood, and that motion of going back and forward is called a saw, and the cutting of the wood, you use a saw to cut it, and the sound is the exact same as when a leopard makes the sound. So leopards do like to saw, and they make a big noise, and normally it's at night. Now this leopard that you see here, he won't be sawing yet because he's still too young. He doesn't have an area or a home that he's set up. Only when they have a home will they saw to try and then keep other leopards out of that area and away from there. So that's what it's called. But yes, they can make a roaring sound, but it doesn't sound like a lion's roar at all. I'm going to actually try and see. I think I do have a leopard sawing, a recording of a leopard sawing, so that I can play it for you so that you can hear what it sounds like, because I'm not very good at making the sound. But if I've got it here, then I can play it for you, and you'll be able to then hear exactly what a leopard saw is like. Now, I wonder if I do have it. I must have a leopard sawing somewhere. I've luckily enough seen leopards sawing quite a few times, and so I'm hoping that I do have somewhere a recording of a leopard sawing. But it's a very rough sound, so I'm going to keep kind of scrolling through to see if I've got it. I don't know if I do, actually. I think I might have unfortunately deleted it off my phone by mistake. That's not good news at all. I was hoping that I did have the leopard sawing, but it seems as though I don't have it with me. Oh no, that's not good. But our leopard is still just gazing into the sunset. I wonder if maybe he spotted something as well that he's just watching, because generally leopards are quite sort of lazy cats when it's still, the sun is up and he might be a little bit warm, and I thought he would have still been sleeping, but he's kind of looking off into the distance at the moment. And so I don't know if maybe he spotted something. You see the water goes up like this, and there's a lot of places there where leopard or prey animals can come and drink, and so that's maybe why he's on top, just having a little look to see. He might have spotted something that he's watching. Also, I suppose he doesn't want to get caught by those unfriendly hyenas again by being on top of or below and not seeing them coming. It's also why he might have moved. But look, he's up now, so I wonder if he's going to come and drink. And isn't he absolutely beautiful? He's one of my favorite leopards that we see here, and leopards are my favorite animals in the world, so I love spending time with them. But hopefully he's not going to go back where he was. Oh, no, don't go that way. Alright, well, we're going to have to try. We're going to try and get back round so we can see him. Now, Hanley, leopards are most definitely enemies of other animals, and the reason why is because they eat other animals. So they will go and hunt impalas and duikers and steenbok, which are all little antelopes, which are basically hoofed animals, so things like your deer. And they'll hunt birds, and they'll hunt insects, and they'll hunt things like rabbits. And so they're the enemy of a lot of different animals. Also, if a leopard comes across something like a baby hyena or a baby lion or something like that, they will sometimes also kill them. So it's a bit of a difficult one, and they are enemies of a lot of animals, and that's because they eat meat. If they didn't eat meat, then they wouldn't be enemies of those animals. So you'll find all the animals that don't eat meat, they are okay. It's the ones that do eat meat that get themselves into trouble. Now, I just want to try and get myself into a place where we can see this leopard a little bit better. So Daniel, this leopard is not hungry right now, and the reason why I say that, I'm going to try and park so that you can see why. Look at his tummy. If you see his tummy, you'll see that it is very swollen and big and has lots of food in it, and that's because this leopard ate last night. So he was able to get himself a little bit of a meal last night, and so no, he's not hungry. But the thing about leopards is that they are what's called opportunistic. So opportunistic means that anything that comes near them, so any prey animal like a deer comes past, they will try and hunt it, even if they've had a really good meal. So it's not like us when we eat and then we're very full and then we don't want to eat anymore. The leopard, if it sees a chance to get a food source, it will grab it straight away. And the reason why is because leopards sometimes can go 2-3 days without food. Now imagine trying to not eat for 2 days. You'll be very hungry, and so if there's a chance to grab food, they will grab it, and then they put it up in a tree to keep it away from the hyenas like we saw just now, or from any of the other predators, so that they can feed on it over 2, 3, 4 days, or as long as it takes to finish that particular food item. So they are very clever in that regard. So you can see still very sleepy, eyes are closing. But isn't he so beautiful? He's one of the most beautiful cats that we could ever wish to see. In fact, leopards for me are just absolutely amazing. Michael, leopards do sleep a lot. They don't sleep as much as the lions that Taylor have. Taylor's lions will sleep for about 20 hours a day sometimes, which is a very, very long time. But leopards do sleep a lot as well. They'll probably sleep for at least 12 or 13 hours a day. Now, the reason why leopards and lions do sleep a lot is because when they are active, they use a lot of energy very quickly. It's very difficult to run very fast and chase animals and then wrestle with the animal and be able to kill it, and so they need to rest for a lot of the time so that they can keep their strength and keep their energy, so that when they do hunt and when they do try kill that animal, that they are able to grab it and be able to bring it down. And so lots of rest. Also, because they're covered in fur, they get very hot, and so when here in Africa it's the middle of the day and the sun is shining, it's often a very, very, very warm, and so leopards with fur all over them, it's tough for them to walk around, so they rather go and find some shade where they can sleep and try and stay nice and cool. Fast because he's been hot today and because he's got lots of food in his tummy, and the food in his tummy is difficult to break down, and so it causes a lot of heat, and that means that he has to breathe fast to try and cool himself down. Now, Naila, you were wondering why he's breathing so fast, and like I say, he's basically trying to cool himself. And what you'll find is, I don't know if you saw earlier when he was sitting on watching over the dam or over the water, his mouth was open and he was breathing quite fast with his mouth open, and the reason for that is because he has saliva in his mouth. Now, saliva is basically the moisture or the wetness in your mouth, and that saliva is on the tongue, and so as he's breathing, the heat that is coming out of his body is causing that wetness to evaporate. Now, evaporate basically means that the water gets turned into a gas via heat, and it then gets expelled, and that process of changing from water to gas causes the blood in his tongue to get actually cooler. So it cools his blood down and makes him far cooler. The other reason why he's breathing fast is because with a full tummy, his diaphragm, which is the muscle that controls how much air can go into the lungs, is pushed right up against his lungs, and so his lungs can't get as big as they need to be to take normal breaths, and so his breath is much shorter and shallower, as we call it, and that means that he has to breathe much faster. So it's a very clever system that the lions and leopards and big cats have. It's to be able to cope with living in places that gets up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. They need to be able to find places and ways to deal with that, and that's how we end up with a situation that he's able to walk around and still function. Now, you'll see that we might start going into infrared, which is like what Taylor had, because the light is starting to go away, and so if it goes black and white, there we go, it's in black and white now, and that's because we've switched to the infrared so that we can see better, because it's starting to get dark. Now, yeah, you're wondering if the leopards see or hear very well. Sorry, yes, they do. They are very, very, very good hearing and very good eyesight and very good sense of smell. The reason is because leopards are mostly active at night, and so it's difficult to see at night. They need to be able to use their ears to hear and to see and pick up all kinds of animals and prey, so that they can then hunt better at night. The other thing is that their eyes are different to our eyes. We see in all beautiful colors and we're able to see very well during the day, but at night, if you go outside and it's very dark, you can't see anything. If the lights go off, you can't see. Whereas a leopard, it sees like we do during the day, and that's because it has a very, very clever eye. In terms of lions and leopards and with us as people, we have two types of cells in our eyes. So we've got what's called rods and we've got what's called cones. And so rods are cells that are able to pick up light, so it allows light to come into the eye, and so for us to be able to see in darker times. And cones are for color, so to be able to pick up all the colors of the world. Now in a leopard's case, they don't have very many cones. They have mostly rods, and so they can see at night, and so their hearing, their eyesight, and their sense of smell is very well developed to be able to hear all of these animals moving, and so that they can become very good hunters at night. You'll also notice that they've got very long whiskers. Now their whiskers help them with all of that as well, because their whiskers are able to pick up vibrations as well at night. Now Amanda, you're asking if leopards have sharp teeth. They have very sharp teeth. So if this leopard would yawn for us, then we'd be able to see those sharp teeth. But I might have a picture somewhere of a leopard's teeth, and then I can show you just how sharp they are, because it's amazing to actually see how big their teeth actually are. They've got these big sharp canines, and that's what they have to use to try and grab an animal. And then they've got triangular shaped teeth that act just like the saw that I was talking about earlier for the wood. They act as a way to be able to cut pieces of meat off of a carcass and be able to then eat it. Now I'm going to show you what their teeth look like, because I've got a picture for you to be able to see. So if we go in over there, that will help you. So this is one of the leopards that we see in this area, and I want to show you their teeth. Now look at these big sharp canines that you can see there. So those are the canines that they use to kill animals. Alright, so those teeth are going to go in and try and kill the animal. And then you see that on the edges here, they have those triangle teeth that I was telling you about. Now those act like a little knife. So if you've ever had a steak, or you've had chicken or something like that, and you've tried to cut it, you know that you need a sharp knife. And this is the exact same thing. So the top ones and the bottom ones together, they slice and they will cut a bit of meat off for the cat to swallow. And then if you have a look at these teeth in between the canines, so the ones up at the top are probably easier to see. You see those ones? They're not as sharp. Now the reason why those aren't as sharp is because those teeth are there to be able to pull off feathers and fur. When they're eating, they don't digest feathers and fur very well, and so they're able to pull it off using those teeth there that basically act like their fingers and are able to pull off little chunks. And then if you have a look at the tongue, you see the tongue looks very rough in coloration. So the tongue doesn't look like it would, or our tongue would look. It's because it's covered in lots of rough hairs, and it feels a little bit like sandpaper. And that sandpaper is very rough, and it's also to be able to lick the fur and feathers off of their kill so that they can be able to eat it. But there we go. That's a nice indication of just how big their teeth can be. And that's a young little leopard. Her teeth will get bigger. Jasmine, luckily I've never been attacked by a leopard. You hear the hyenas? So the leopard, you see, he's curious because there's hyenas close by. So look, he's going to go right now. We need to just try and go around and see what's going on. Look how he's stalking. See how he's gotten himself lower so that he can see without getting any attention. Look at that, and look at the beautiful colors as well. How amazing is that? Now the noise you heard was hyenas, so I'm going to try and just quickly go around so I can show you the hyenas. And those hyenas are making a noise because probably they are playing or interacting with each other. So it's really going to be cool to see. Now I've got to just try and find a way through here. Sorry, I'm very bouncy. We've got to get over some logs and some stumps and all kinds of other things and try and see if we can get into the sighting. And round. Come on, car. Turn, Rusty. There we go, Rusty managed to make it past the tree. Now our leopard is still on top there, so I want to just quickly get round. So the hyenas are here at the dam. Look how many hyenas there are. There's 3 hyenas here that I can see, and the leopard sitting on the dam here watching the hyenas from over there. So leopard on our right hand side, hyenas on our left, and the hyenas are coming for a drink. They were at the carcass, or at the food that this leopard had earlier. In fact, there's 4 hyenas that are there. Look, there they're all going. You can see there's one on the far left, one going up the bank, another one in the water, and so they're all coming for a drink before they start going off and looking for food. And that's what they're after. They're going to try and find dead animals that they can eat, or even sometimes hunt their own animals. A lot of people think that hyenas are only what's called a scavenger. Now, a scavenger is an animal that basically relies on finding dead food, but that's not always the case with hyenas. They actually are very good predators, and they can hunt for themselves. Now, the reason why they were making noise is because they met up with one another, and they were trying to just chat to each other. It's like us talking and greeting each other. It's like we say hello and those kind of things. It's the exact same for those hyenas. But look at how beautiful our leopard is. And you see how as soon as he heard it, you were asking earlier about his sense of hearing. His hearing is very good because he's able to hear that and come straight to this area. Dominique, you're asking if leopards can climb trees. Yes, Dominique, a leopard is probably the best animal at climbing a tree. They are very, very good at it, and they've adapted and use that to be able to survive out here. Remember, there's hyenas and there's lions and there's other leopards, and so those animals, or particularly hyena and lion, are not the best climbers. And so a leopard, to stay safe, can jump up into a tree, go right up into the top and sit up there and stay safe. Also, what can happen is if they've got food, they can take their food up into a tree where they can keep it safe from the hyenas that will try and steal it from them. So they are very good climbers. In fact, they're the best climbers of all the big cats that we see out here. Isn't he magnificent, though? Look at how full his tummy is. And Nisha, my favorite animal is what we're looking at right now, is a leopard. I love leopards. I love spending as much time as I can with them. They are my favorite animals because, well, one is they are absolutely beautiful. 2, they are incredibly strong animals, and their life and the way that they live is very difficult. To live by yourself is not easy out here. You can't get anybody else to get food for you. There's nobody else that tries to protect you, so they've got to survive with all these other animals that are out here that are threatening their lives. So I really like that they're able to do that. They also are incredibly strong animals, probably one of the strongest animals that we have out here. If you take their weight to power ratio, so that basically means how much they weigh versus how much power they can produce, they are one of the strongest animals out here. And so for me, I just love that. They also are shy, they're secretive, they're a difficult animal to find. Sometimes we can go days without finding these leopards, and so for us, it's a very special thing to be able to see them, and we are so spoiled that we can see leopards, and that's why I love them. And also out here we track leopards, which means that we'll try and find their footprints and follow their footprints to find them. And it's the biggest test of your skill as a tracker is to track a leopard, because it walks in difficult places. It's a light animal, which means it doesn't leave a really big track like the lions or the elephants do, and so it's a hard animal to track, but it's exciting to learn how to track them and to try and track them. So that's why I love them so much. Namia, it depends on the animal, but these leopards sometimes will actually come very, very close to us. Sometimes we'll find a situation where these leopards will be right next to the car. I've had this particular male lying right next to my tire, where he's basically, his back is touching the tire of the car, so sometimes very close. But the thing is with animals, and the best way to be out here, is that you drive and you give the animal space, and if the animal wants to come near you and lie down near you, that's okay, because then it's not scared of you. But if I had to try and drive that close to him, I would chase him, and I would break the trust that we have with these animals. These animals have learned that we are not somebody that tries to kill them, we don't try and hurt them, we don't steal food from them, and that's why we're able to see an animal like a leopard, which is normally shy. It doesn't want attention, it doesn't want things to see it, but because we are respectful and we don't go too close and we don't push it in any way, then we can get very, very close. And it's the same with all the other animals that are out here. If we show some respect, then generally the animals can come quite close and we get to see them amazingly, like we are seeing this leopard right now. But you can see he's still watching where those hyenas went. The hyenas have left now. They're no longer here. They've moved away. But he's still watching in that area. He's still wary. He knows that one hyena is not a problem. But 4 or 5 of hyenas, that's a very serious problem and something that he has to be very careful of and stay away from. And so that's why he's watching carefully, because if they come towards him, he's then going to have to run away and try and find somewhere to get safe. And normally that's up into a tree. Sometimes they will be able to run and the hyenas will leave them alone, because the hyenas don't want to fight with a leopard. They know a leopard is dangerous, but what they want is to try and see if there isn't any food available that they can potentially have or get and be able to grab. So Zadian, you're asking of how do the the animals actually see the leopard if they blend in so well? Well, the reason is that these leopards, have a scent and they smell. So the other animals out here can smell them. And that's a lot of the time. Oh, look, you see he's trying to catch flies. So he's rolling around because there's flies flying around and he's trying to catch them. There we go. So they are able to smell him. Also, if he's sitting in a place like this, he's out in the open, it is quite easy to see him. It's only when he's in thick areas that it's tough to see him, but he still has a scent. And so things like hyenas, who have very powerful noses that can smell very well, they will find him by smelling him and following the smell until they see where he is. Also, if he has food, the food the food will rot, and that smell is very strong, and a lot of the animals can smell it. You see how he's trying to catch the flies? So you were asking earlier if they play with other leopards. Well, you can see sometimes they play all on their own and they try and grab the flies and try and get all the things that they can from them. It's very cute. No, your paws are too big to catch flies. Jack, we do live with all these animals. I live from where we are right now. I'm living maybe not even 5 minutes drive from where we are now. We have rooms that are here in the bush, and we live out here with the animals. And the reason why is because we start our jobs very early in the morning and we end quite late in the evening. And so we have to get here when it's still dark, because the animals are active at sunrise and sunset. And so yes, we do live out here, and it's the best life in the world, Jack. We get to see all these animals every day. Our neighbors are elephants and leopards and lions. It's dangerous, but it is very, very cool to live out here and to hear them at night and to be able to see all of them. So Tasha, you were asking if I like my job because it looks like fun. Tasha, it is the best job in the world. We really do have the best job. Viam and I, we are able to be out here every single day. We get to see the beautiful animals of this world. We're outside in the fresh air, in the sunshine. So we're seeing things. It's good for our brains and our skin and all kinds of other things to be in the fresh air. And so it's a wonderful thing to do and to learn from animals and see animals, particularly because nowadays animals, unfortunately, are under a bit of pressure because us as humans, we're growing and our population is getting bigger and bigger. We have a situation where we're pushing all of our wild animals out of their homes and they're all losing areas to live. And so it's becoming harder and harder to find wild animals. And so we're very, very lucky that we get to see all of these animals, even the rare ones that are almost getting close to extinction, which means that there are going to be no longer any of them around. We get to see those every day. So I love what I do, and I love to be able to tell you about it and teach you all at home, so that maybe one day you too will be able to come out here and see these animals and will realize the importance of looking after them. So Bianca, you're asking how long it took me to be a ranger. Well, become a ranger. Well, it's a difficult thing, because as a ranger, to get my basic qualifications to be able to start working was a 6-month course that based me inside one of these bush areas where we did practicals every day. So we would go out and we would walk and we would do drives, and then we'd go between the drives, we would go to the classroom and do all of our learning and studying about all of these kind of things. But as a ranger, you learn every single day. So even though I've been doing this for quite some time and I've been out here for a long time, it doesn't mean that I'm not learning every day. There's still little things that we don't know. There's always something that is different. Animals react to their environment and will change their behavior to try and help themselves out and to survive. And so we're learning all the time, and that's the best thing about this job, is even though I am qualified to be out here, I still learn every single day, and that's a very special thing to have learn every day, and you get to spend time watching and seeing changes in things that we don't know and things that we're still learning. Bianca, you're asking what's my favorite cat besides a leopard. Bianca, I'm not sure actually. I suppose lions. I do like lions. Lions are good animals. I like the way that they live together and the way that they hunt and bring down such big animals, and the power of a male lion's roar and those kind of things is absolutely amazing. So I suppose lions, but I also like caracals. Now, a caracal is a smaller cat, but a very strong, very powerful cat. It's got these big, powerful legs and long, pointy ears. It looks very similar to a lynx. So basically, that's what it looks like. And they are amazing animals as well. In fact, they're about as strong as what the leopards are. So an incredible cat. Now, unfortunately, it is that time of the day where we start to go home, and unfortunately, it's all the time we have for our day out in the bush. I hope that all of you have absolutely loved every minute of being here in Africa with us, and that we've been able to chat and talk about all the questions that you have. And I hope one day that you will come out here and see all of these for yourself. And I hope that you also enjoy the rest of your day